All right, welcome inside the numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. We had what are the odds on Monday, and that was good. Of course, it's just this is the first inside the numbers. I've been like traveling a lot, moving around a lot. It's good to be back for a second. It's my little one's 5 year. He's 5 today. My last baby. He's 5 today. He's not even a baby anymore. You know, time flies, folks. Time flies. Speaking of which, time can fly between March and now, and you will hear an amazing amount of lies from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Because what do we have here? You want to tell everybody? Go tell everybody. Come here, speak into the microphone.
Birthday.
It's your what?
It's my birthday.
And how old are you?
5.
Yeah. And what are you starting in a couple of days? Do you remember?
Where are you going to go to?
So.
Yeah, dude.
Come on,
Let's go. High five. Give me a kiss. Absolutely.
Give
Love
Dad a
it.
kiss.
You did great. You're
I'm
gonna
going to get my present.
maybe
I'm going to get my thing.
you go get whatever you want, buddy. You deserve it. You're a good boy, and I'll tell you this: you're an easy boy. I love you too, little man. It's an easy boy. What do you want, kid? What do you want? What do you want? I don't know. Toys from Walmart. What? Whatever. Okay. All right. I think he's gonna be the People's Pundit. My oldest son, for a while there, I thought my daughter was going to be like a female People's Pundit and want to like do this. But she's got her own path to follow. This kid, I don't know. We'll see. I'll tell you what, I hope I hope not any of them don't do this. Do something else, man. I hope the world is in better shape and they can focus on doing other things like me, myself, and I did not want to do this. I didn't. I'll just be honest. I didn't want to do this and use my what do you want to call it? My knack for numbers. I wanted to do like aeronautical engineering or aerospace engineering and go back to school and go to Embry-Riddle. And the world was a mess, you know. So that's that. Well, you all know the story. You know what? Watch Sidebar with Viva and Barnes, and you'll get the whole rundown. But so here we are, and back to before he walked in talking about these numbers. I think I want to start there. Of course, we're at day 3 of the Democratic Convention, and the question is, will there be a bounce? The betting markets, I always tell people, listen, the betting markets are poll watchers. They're like Nate Silver. There's not like a whole lot that goes into it. And most of the people that participate, like Nate, is like not sophisticated. It's not a complicated or sophisticated modeling system. And most of the time I can show you, like, we can move the betting markets. I can show you that. And we've done it before in the past. Something, however, is going on. So they're observing how this convention is going, and they are ignoring the polls, which no doubt are all over the place. I mean, it looks like you want to say, okay, well, the Kamala bounce is over. The response bias is done. The environment's awful. And I can tell you right now, it does look better. It appears it has, I don't want to say it leveled out. It didn't. It has not gotten back to an environment where I want to junk the social bias indicators, where I want to junk the response bias indicators, because we can't. And I'm so glad that we added them. We also have to talk about, obviously, huge news or potential news with RFK. And last night I said, I'm calling dibs, and we're throwing a couple of questions to show you in a second. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. The results reminded me, remember the primary folks, the Trump or bust voters, but we measured everybody, every candidate that was running for president, whether they had a core of vote that was their vote only, and then candidate loyalty. You remember candidate loyalties? Those measures on where would these voters go? Are they 100% behind these? It's very clearly Trump has a vote that is a Trump only vote. Does RFK have a RFK only vote? And then if so, how much is it? Because it was always clear to me, no matter what the national polls, and we've been over this, I stated a million times, the national polls were misleading in the beginning. Biden was unpopular. People couldn't bring themselves to admit they would vote for somebody who's senile. Like, this is what it was. And when you looked in the battleground states, it was much more complicated, much more convoluted about who would it hurt and where. In Minnesota, it did look like it would hurt Biden more, but in Michigan and Pennsylvania, it looked like it would hurt Trump more. And overall, I was saying I believed RFK would hurt Trump more because there are no educated, Valium wino, suburban, credentialed, Joy Behar watching suburban women out there that are going to vote for RFK. That's not who he was attracting. He was attracting, and this is the part that did hurt Biden, a piece of the working class base, that Democratic base that has not yet gone to Republicans, but doesn't like Democrats. Biden in 20, Barnes and I spent a lot of time talking about this on Monday. But Biden in 20 did well in like Lackawanna and Scranton and Pike and even Northampton. He did better in areas like that where Obama and Gore and Kerry even, I mean, they had this core working class base. Trump took that from Hillary in 16, and Biden had peeled some of them back. Now, there were more voters in the electorate in 20, so it's difficult to say that and make that math work. But Trump just added more voters. Biden had peeled some back. That is not going, those people aren't going to Harris. All right. And that's a major problem with the polling going on right now. That's how you can see that is one of many problems with polling right now from this response bias. And, we saw this. It reminds me again. I mean, I was hoping to go into 2020 with a regular environment. The media cannot help themselves. The New York Times and all of these bad faith actors, and they are bad faith actors. All right. I don't know how you put out a poll in the middle of a convention. I don't know how you put out battleground polls knowing that you have a disgusting recalled vote. And look at the YouGov poll today. Now we're up to D plus 11, dude. Like, whoa. 300 Republicans, 500 and something Democrats. And it's a simple way that you could balance this. Like, folks, the technology now, even if you're using an online panel, can I show you? Let me show you something. Just wait. Give me a second, okay? The technology has come so far. So when we're targeting these people, we absolutely know in response bias environments, will it fix everything? No, but we have technology and tactics, technology and methods is a better word, that can help compensate for this. And they're just simply not doing it. So in my mind, you're a bad faith actor. If that's the case, you are a bad faith actor. Okay? It doesn't look like, unless I go into the survey, it simply doesn't look like I can do it. And I don't want to do that because I don't want to confuse anybody, but there's very simply things called balancing, and it's not really that hard. The bottom line is you can very easily just weird. What's going on? The update screwed up here. Oh, I got to go through release notes. Okay. Can't do that on the show. Oh, I did get that email. They were trying to warn me about this. Wow. In the middle of a poll. It's just a sign in thing. But in any event, you can do targeted balancing, over a period of time. It makes sure, like, if you want your sample hopefully to be representative and fall somewhere in the neighborhood 52 to 53% female, something like that. I'm using gender because it's simple, binary. Then you can make sure that, like, 35 to 50-year-old suburban females just don't jump in the sample and swamp it. Right? It's very different than random digital dial, right? Which is even worse for response bias. There's not a whole lot you can do about that except for continue to collect and watch your geographic and education demographics, your geo and education demographics. They're intentionally not doing this. All right. So in any event, and it's a good way to segue into how we're going to handle this RFK thing because it's huge news. And we'll get there more. There's going to be two ways we're going to have to report this. We're not because of this, because of balancing and everything else. And because he's probably, I don't want to jump the gun here, but it's possible we can get news on this before we're done with the survey. If that happens, we'll give you an idea about who that RFK voter is, that RFK or bus voter. How much would go to Donald Trump? what surprised me is how similar these numbers are to the polling we were doing on the, X or bus voters dating back to when the primaries were still in full swing. So what does that mean? There is a share that looks like they would vote just for Kennedy, and they probably won't vote if Kennedy's not on the ballot. How much is that? It is a smaller share than the share that will vote for another candidate. However, it's a chunk. It looks like, when it doesn't look like, it does. Because there does appear to be an endorsement along with it, which does have an impact. And if let's just run this because I think she says it well. If the ticket makes a good case as to why they did this, and of course I'm talking about Nicole Shanahan going on to, where'd she go on to? Impact Theory, and say, we're going to have to get out and we're going to have to make a case to our voters as to why we're doing this. That would be effective. It would. There's a second part of it, though. It would be effective under certain circumstances, and that is, there's a reason why Barnes and I were doing the Four Freedoms poll. We wanted to know what it would take to move those voters. Voters who are voting for Kennedy, but would consider voting for Trump and or Biden or Harris. What issues would move them? What would sell them? I'm not sure there's another pollster who's done more research on this. The impact of the Kennedy voter. I mean, everyone else is doing top line BS. Nobody is drilled down the way we have drilled down. Period. Full stop. And there are issues that Trump can do more on. Let me just, very simply, the short answer, Barnes is right. Barnes is right. Trump just needs to meet the man on some of these issues, which are popular with his voters anyway, and voters who aren't his voters. He just has to meet them a little bit of the way. Food freedoms. Really, the big one is food is huge. I couldn't believe how popular that was. But obviously, the one that connects them is Big Pharma. And giving the man, I don't know. You got to give him HHS, maybe? I don't know. You give him some role at the CDC. Go ham on the CDC. Who has, and honestly, the CDC is probably the better bet. Why? Because nobody likes the CDC anymore. Nobody trusts the CDC. They once had a tremendously positive trust rating, a tremendously positive, favorable image. They have none of that now. It is completely cratered. Good job to people like Dr. Fauci and all the other scumbags in the public sector and in the medical public sector. By the way, when we get to jobs, amazingly, they're doing fine. Government workers, the medical industry, the indoctrination industry, whatever you want to call it, the indoctrination factory, which is obviously supplanting the working class factories of the country because there are none. Wait until you see the numbers. It's unbelievable. Wait until you see the trends. And I'm just going to take you in a short trip in history, back in history, and show you where we were. Look, it's undeniable. We're getting policy proposals now, and something that always bothered me about politics when it came to debating economic policy, there is no opinion. There is a right and a wrong answer. There is a truth and a false. Oh, she wants to raise the corporate tax rate. We have more than a half a century of economic data from the developed world. When Trump was doing the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, he used that data and tried to corral Republicans who were scumbags, but tried to corral them into the Goldilocks zone where if you cut the corporate tax rate, you not only increase revenue to the Treasury, but you increase wage growth. I would have wanted 5% more, but he's in the Goldilocks zone. She wants to take it right out of the Goldilocks zone and then claim it'll raise more revenue and it's good for the worker. It's not. It's not opinion. You got all these left-wing influencers up fighting with me on Twitter. Bro, you're stupid. Understand? You're stupid. Either that or you're just such a partisan hack. You're wasting your intelligence on your you're being a partisan hack. This can be looked up. This isn't my opinion. It is what it is. And then, shocker, when Trump goes in the Goldilocks zone, the economy blows up. Revenue to the Treasury goes up regardless of what the CBO projected, which they had to revise because they always have to do that because the CBO is shit. The CBO was created during the Great Society to justify the perpetuation of the Great Society. Bureaucrats perpetuating bureaucracy. They're always wrong. They don't know how to score anything but static, they forget about dynamics. It's just too complicated for them, but it's against their ideology. So they don't even care. And wages popped to 3 and above. By the way, once they hit it, it was consecutive every month. Boom, 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 until COVID. At 3% or more for the first time since the Great Recession. In a non-high inflation environment, which means you actually felt it. And 85% of Americans felt that. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. And wait until you see what it did for manufacturing. And now look where we are. Never understood this. You're a Democrat? Fine, you're a Democrat. You're a Republican? Fine, you're a Republican. You cannot have your own opinion about numbers. Well, I think it's good policy for manufacturing. Well, then you're a stupid son of a bitch. I don't know what to tell you. Can you not look at numbers month over month on the government website? Although you may have to wait a year because they lie a lot for a Democrat when they're in office. Just got to get that off my chest. You know what? Let's get into the jobs first. Then we'll talk about what we think we're seeing with their bounce. And I'm not going to keep you in suspense. There is no bounce. In fact, I don't know yet. We'll see when the convention clears up here. It looked like maybe Harris would have like a 1-point lead. I don't even think she's going to get that. This is not a good convention. It's not. Unless you're a partisan. And I told you the picking of Tim Walz told me 2 things. One, and I was right because I know from talking to sources, Shapiro is a Jew and they cannot pick a Jew. Too much of their party is anti-Semitic. Again, another fact, not my opinion. So if you get mad at me for stating it, maybe you should be mad at yourself for being a part of anti-Semitism, unless you yourself are a Jew hater. And then I don't know why you're angry with me bringing it up. You should at least have the balls to admit that you hate Jews. Anyway, 2, that they are abandoning going for the middle. Tim Walz has made so many statements in support of communism and socialism. How could you honestly go to Twitter and act like it's the same for Republicans to call him a communist? It's the same for them to do that as Democrats calling Republicans fascists. It's not. There are, again, not an opinion. There are facts here. There's a definition of what a fascist is, economically and politically. There's a definition of what a communist is, economically and politically. Although Webster Dictionary about 6 weeks, or not even, now it's not even, it's August 21st, recently changed their definition of what a fascist is and removed the more government-centered definition and replaced it with more of having to deal with what is we think of as Nazism. But Nazism is not per se what fascism is. Nazism is a form of fascism. Fascism is a system of government, and it's not unlike communism. It's socialist in nature, but unlike communism, there is not public ownership of industry and companies. They don't own the labor, the capital, the means of producing goods, right? They don't own that stuff, but they do direct it. It's basically a charade of a private sector. Hitler can walk in and say, "Oh, what beautiful cars you make. You don't make those cars anymore. You make tanks." America did that too, but it wasn't by force. The government directs labor, resources. It is a form of socialism. So for a Democrat or Democratic pundits or influencers or left-wingers in general. To call Republicans fascist makes zero sense because, of course, Republicans don't believe in big government, and fascism is a form of socialism, which is about big government. I suppose the only way you can make that work is if you view the Republican Party as the party of the Bill Kristols and his communist daddy, Irving Kristol. Then you could make that argument because they are domestic commies and foreign policy hawks. That's what a neocon is. They are domestically, I don't even want to say liberal, they are domestically far left. His daddy was a nutcase far leftist, and he fall right in his shoes. They just believe in using the primacy of U.S. power to shape the world in their image. So if the Republican Party was the party of the Bushes and the Romneys and the Kristols, then I guess you could make the argument with their connection to the military-industrial complex that they are in fact fascist. However, in modern MAGA, that is not the case. In traditional conservatism, that is not the case. It is literally just a small wing of the party that had power for a small period in the modern era. The left, however, you don't see anybody on the right going out on TV and saying, you know, one person's fascism is another person's neighborliness. He has made positive comments about genocidal Marxist governments. Like, what are you talking about? Kamala Harris's father is a Marxist, a radical man. So, I mean, it's not, again, not even close. And the policies that they support will have a very real impact. So unless you're willing to be truthful, you will find yourself 4 years later looking at reports like this. I mean, that's the point I'm bringing it up. But Republicans need to understand that Americans aren't afraid of the word communist anymore. They're not. I was listening. Somebody had sent me a clip of Mark Levin saying, look, I've heard you say this before. Listen to what Mark's saying. What's your criticism of this? My criticism is that Mark is afraid of communism more than the rest of the country is. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm simply saying Republicans are in a very dated mindset where the word fascist scares the shit out of American voters, and that's why Democrats use it. And they're projecting because they themselves are actually the fascist. I mean, I'm talking about from a system of government point of view, the definition. Should we run the clips of Kamala Harris talking about seizing patents and forcing people to do things with them? You just have to have the political will. That is a fascistic statement. That's very Benito Mussolini. It is. You don't see Republicans doing that. You just don't. All right. Let's get into some of these numbers. Let me just give you these numbers, then I'm going to give you two reactions to them, okay? It's bad. Since March of 2024, the government reported they lied about almost 1 million jobs. Almost 1 in 8 of them, roughly 1 in 8 of them that were not really created, were manufacturing jobs. You have to remember, the economy was already being reported. Look, these were missing consensuses month after month after month after month, and then we would get downward revisions. And now we're hearing it's even worse than we expected, and we finally got the number. It's really bad. Let's start with Fox, and then we'll go to CNN. And then we're going to just really quick take a trip down memory lane. Then we'll move on to the polling. Let's do this.
And fewer jobs. This is basically the government's overstated the amount of people in the workforce. And even when you look onto this, manufacturing was down 115,000 people. So this is a revision down a.
That's bad, folks. Out of 818,000 jobs that were non-existent and never created, 115,000 of them were manufacturing. And as you know from watching the show, manufacturing has been losing jobs in good months. In good months in the last this year, we have seen stagnant, meaning no creation whatsoever. And that was like a good month for manufacturing. The trend has been very clear. It's been healthcare, it's been the indoctrination industry, and some parts of construction that support the government. All right, that's really it. Even leisure and hospitality, which was always a big part of the Obama economy, which is why wage growth never occurred. It's like if you were a member of the professional class or the government, then you were probably doing all right, even though a lot of the professional class industries actually are suffering. You can see in this report. But if you were, then you were in much better shape than the average American, the working American. And if maybe for a while anyway, under Obama, and then even for the first couple of years under Biden, if you got lucky, you can get a job waiting on those people hand and foot. And then you could work 2 or 3 jobs, kiss their ass for tips, which you're going to have to, give to the government anyway, because Kamala Harris cast a tie-breaking vote to hire IRS agents to come after you if you don't report tips correctly. And now she, of course, supports no tax on tips. It's shocking. But in any event, those were the jobs that were being created, and they were typically the lion's share of non-professional class jobs. And now that's not even the case. They're not there. Here we go. It's bad. It's really bad.
Manufacturing was down 115,000 people. So this is a revision down, a significant revision down, the largest in 15 years that we've seen. And it basically says that the government has now overstated the amount of people who are working in this workforce. It shows weakness in the job markets over the past year that we didn't realize was there, but now we know is there. So again, 818,000 overall jobs down, manufacturing down 115,000 in this. And if you just wrote construction down 45,000. So these numbers are huge numbers in revisions down, Bill.
Now that is just fact-based way to report it, okay? I want you to pay attention and listen to CNN's spin on this, okay? And by the way, notice construction was thrown into that loop as well, even though there are all these government projects and they're not new residential construction jobs, folks. They're not like private industry or, private non-farm. That's a lot of that was the construction numbers that were being reported. That is not what they were. That's not where they were coming from. Why does this matter? Every month or every quarter when we do the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, this thing has been on point. And it has told us from the jump that people kind of knew, but even though the government was lying. And I do believe the government was lying. I do. We don't see revisions like this often, folks. You just heard them. It's the largest revision in 15 years. There was a reason for that revision 15 years ago. Do the math. The only reason now is that they just don't want Donald Trump back in office. And remember that when I play a clip with some voters in a bit. All right? Remember that. Remember that. Remember that they go above and beyond to hurt people. And then be surprised when these people catch on. Like maybe it took them some time to catch on, but they're catching on. They just never believed it. Gallup, our index, Rasmussen's economic confidence index, like so many of us who poll these things, we saw it. We knew it wasn't real. And I just don't see any legitimate reason, nor because I'm always using my mind, the way it works is I immediately go to probabilities. And I look at the world in generalities because of it, and maybe that's a flaw, but I immediately think about things like this. And I'm the kind of guy who's like going down the road like I did this past weekend. Look at that car. You know what the odds are? What's the likelihood that car is a white woman at this age? This is how my brain works. It just is. Because I've always been, number one, I've always been like that, but it's my job to put people in boxes. And I know that, may be weird, but it is. And, I don't know. Maybe without further ado, I should let it go. But just keep that in mind that people of all, unless you're partisan, like really partisan, people that don't fit some of these generalities still didn't believe them. And I wasn't believing them simply because my mind works that way. And I'm thinking, what are the odds? No pun intended. What are the odds that we're getting downward revisions 10 out of 12 months on a 12-month rolling basis for 3 years. Like, this is not normal. The odds are they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. And by the way, fake modeler boy out there with his fair to neutral job market indicator in his model. I mean, yet another absolutely devastating data point for Soy Boy and his fake model. I mean, I don't know why Megyn Kelly would have him on, right? I don't know why Sean Hannity would cite the guy. Like, you do yourselves dirty, and you do the voters dirty by giving pieces of shit like that any modicum, shred, iota of credibility that he does not deserve. Why do I get mad at, like, why am I angry? These are people. People. When I go and show you where we were not long ago, those were people. That's human happiness versus human despair. This is a tremendous scandal. I don't know how people don't see it. How many people killed themselves over this stuff, over this economic despair? How many people just couldn't face it anymore? I just personally lost somebody, a friend. Now, he had problems. He's a vet too, and he had issues, but it's like, God, nobody, someone like him and many, many, many others out there, the last thing they needed was this shit. Through no fault of their own. He's still sitting cushy, though. Even though his business failed to make money every year it was in business, somehow he still was living the high life. It pays for him to lie. What about all the people that get hurt along the way with all of these lies from the media, from the pollsters? Like, doesn't anybody give a shit about them? Listen to the spin.
The job growth has been far weaker in the U.S. than originally reported. That is according to new data just coming in this morning. Let's get right to CNN's Matt Egan. What's the headline, Matt?
Jim, 818,000 fewer jobs were added during the period between April 2023 and March of this year. We were bracing for these revisions to come out.
We were bracing for these revisions to come out. Who's we? Who's we? We have a name for it. The Demediocratic Party. Maybe we should call it the Demediocratic Complex. I don't know. Who's we? Paging Sigmund Freud. Paging Sigmund Freud.
Show that job growth was weaker, and that is what we got. This is probably on the high end of the expectations. Some of the forecasters had been saying probably around a few 100,000 jobs. Goldman Sachs had said maybe up to 1 million. So this is on the higher end. We're seeing some of the biggest revisions downward in sectors that include manufacturing, leisure and hospitality, professional and business services. Of course, some sectors actually
see even some professional and business services now
added more jobs than were previously known. Private education, health services, transportation, and warehousing.
Listen to the industries that added more than previously known. Understand, it means these bureaucrats and these hoity-toities are actually doing way better than we thought they were doing, while you're doing way worse than we thought you were doing. Or they were, not that we thought, but that they were reporting. Let's separate that out. It's unbelievable. No wonder why they just double down. They cannot reflect and self-reflect. They can't do any self-reflection, introspection, nothing, because it just doesn't matter. They're doing okay. All we hear from people, on this side is about the wealth gap, the wealth gap, the wealth gap. They create the wealth gap. Here's another fact. That is a fact. Not my opinion. It's a fact. The wealth gap only stopped widening and actually began to start narrowing under Donald John Trump, not under Barack Obama, who promised all that hope and change up and all those warm and fuzzies and all those tingles up your legs. Oh no. That bitch widened like a fat kid's mouth trying to eat a piece of cake under these people.
Look at the market, not a massive reaction from the market. I think that's in part because this is somewhat backwards looking data. What investors really care about is what happens next. And these numbers out today, they do support the idea that the jobs market has been weaker than we previously thought. And that
Whoa, 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 whoa. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. They do support the idea that the jobs market is... Yo, but boy, it's not an idea. It's reality. The jobs market is weaker than you were reporting. It's an idea. What the hell are you talking about? Something is real or something is not. It's relativism is going to be the end of us, folks. Oh, I mean, when did it become a partisan thing to believe in absolutes? You can't just make up your own reality. The world will hurt you for it. You're being hurt right now for it. You can wish something away. You can create your own gender. You can create your own belief on whether, you know what, the data is what the data is, but in my world, the job market is strong. Well, good for you. Let's see how long you last with that. Maybe that's why they end up in all white privileged mobs trying to throw piss in people's faces, because at some point it's not going to make sense to them. How did we get here? How did I get to this? Why does my life suck? I want to be a part of something better. I want to mean something. I'm so insignificant. Well, you just completely live your life in denial of what is. You can hear it in their words. Words matter. The words we choose matter. It does support the idea. You know what? The next time there's a better than expected jobs report under your president, I'm just going to say that, you know what? That supports your idea, but I still think this. It's crazy. And by the way, in that case, that may be a bad example, because in that case, I'd probably be right, given how much they have inflated these numbers. It's not even a full year. Not even a full year.
it has been slowing down. That makes sense because we know the Fed has been working hard to slow the economy down as it tries to fight inflation.
Yes. The Fed, it's the Fed's fault, okay? The Fed is slowing down the economy on purpose, and they're doing it on purpose because they, of course, they're doing it for you. Right.
Inflation. So I do think that the fact that the economy had more than 800,000 fewer jobs than previously known supports the idea that the Fed is going to start cutting interest rates next month. The question still remains whether or not it's a quarter of a point or a larger interest rate cut. But either way, it's going to lower mortgage rates, credit card rates, and car loan rates. Jim?
Listen, maybe it's easy for me to say because I got a sub 3% mortgage rate on my house because I waited and made the right decision when to start construction. I waited a long time. I worked very hard. I suffered and sacrificed in order to do it. So did my family. Maybe it's easy for me to say, but to drop interest rates, to reduce interest rates in this environment, I would love nothing more than for everyone, all of these aspiring first-time home buyers, new couples, young people. I want them, of course, to have the American dream. And I understand how many people were priced out of that housing market the minute those rates went above 3%, 3.5%. All of a sudden, a 650 credit score, which many have in this country, that wasn't good enough anymore, and they were done. And they were no longer qualified. And I get that. And I would love nothing more to see people be able to go down again to low interest rates. However, what's going to happen if the Fed reduces interest rates right now? We may get a short-term pop of activity because, of course, employers and businesses, they look to the future when they make business decisions, right? We may get some short-term positive economic data, right? Because maybe people will jump in, it's not Keynesian, folks. It's that people are making market decisions. And then inflation will get worse. Because the only tool the Fed has to stem out of control inflation is their ability to raise interest rates. So to help Kamala Harris win this election, because they've been lying to you about the economy, we're all going to pay a lot more for eggs, milk, gas, utilities, transportation. By the way, when we talk about RFK, which has to be soon here because we're running out of time, I just have so much we have to cover. Financial freedom may be one of the things Trump wants to think about when he's trying to court the guy. And not just him. He has to court his voters. The Fed is totally out of control. I don't even know, damn Alexander Hamilton, man. I'm serious. Guy was a monarchist, which is weird because he came from like this not monarchist background. He just grew up in a complex or something. I will out bougie your bougie. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So now here we are. All right. I mean, that's CNN. Look at how very, very different. I normally look, I don't sing Fox News's praises, but they did report that, or at least that particular guest. He did a magnificent job. CNN just can't help themselves. They just cannot help themselves. Let me just show you this before we move on, okay? This isn't that long ago. I mean, it feels like a world ago now. After Donald Trump passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, actually, before Donald Trump even took office, the markets, employers, small businesses, everyone got an injection of extreme optimism. You haven't seen anything like it in your lifetime. Not even Reagan. When Reagan was elected, it took 2 years for Reagan's more. And that's typical, but it's back then anyway. It took Reagan years to turn around the disgusting economic situation that he had inherited from Jimmy Carter. There was not an immediate boost of optimism. We just did not see that. And Reagan would go on to hold the record for the most jobs created in a single month until Donald Trump, who not only beat the record, he beat it back to back, month over month for 2 months. After the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed, and one day maybe we'll get into the data on corporate tax rates. Honestly, you could just go to People's Pundit Daily and type in corporate tax rate, and you will not only see a bunch of hard news about what happened, the impact, how it transpired. A big part of me misses doing that, wants to revive that site into what it was, because I really think that the world deserves just hard economic news. But there's only so much time in a day. You'll not only find that, you're going to find just tracking of indicators. And if you type it in, you'll also find columns from economists from the libertarian point of view to Lawrence Summers, Larry, to more traditional right-wing people, and they will all agree on the Goldilocks zone. It's rather remarkable. It's almost like the foreign policy arena, where there's like all of this data, all of this empirical evidence, the historical record, and academics can sit down and say, okay, this is it, and this is how, this is what it tells us. And yet politicians in DC won't believe it, and won't follow it. In the foreign policy arena, it's dominated by realism. The democratic peace theory is bullshit. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Yet everyone believes it. Neoconservatism is a laughingstock in academia. Yet Bill Kristol's on TV all day long. Max Boot, ooh, foreign agent Max. Ooh, Max. Ooh, bad news for you, broski. Couldn't happen to a better guy. Anyway, they entertain these people. And they're walking the halls of the State Department. And you probably heard me say this before. I'll say it again. It's like a running joke in academia. If you can't make it in academia, in the foreign policy arena, you can't defend your thesis, don't worry. You could always go work for the Foreign Service, the State Department, where idiots believe in fictional theories. Constructivism. Crazy feminist takes on realism, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Watch this. No different when it comes to the economy. U.S. manufacturing jobs growing at strongest pace since 1995. August 6th, 2018. The U.S. manufacturing sector has enjoyed the strongest job growth over a 12-month period in more than 2 decades. In July, another 37,000 manufacturing jobs were added, the highest number for a single month since December. The U.S. economy in that month added about 330,000. It was 327,000 manufacturing jobs over the past year. That was the strongest sector growth over a 12-month period since April 1995, when the number was 345,000. Folks, the 90s, the boom of the Clinton 90s, before NAFTA and the WTO completely shredded and hollowed out our Rust Belt and Midwest manufacturing base. By the way, previously cited article here, at that time, manufacturing employment in the U.S. had rose to a 9.5-year high in the month of June, which was, obviously, this was written in August, so it was just had occurred. It just reported. The number of American workers employed in the manufacturing sector rose to 12,713,000. That's the largest number since December of 2008, when manufacturing employment totaled 12,850,000 American workers. And we talk about here, it talks about how, Trump made this the heart of his campaign, and Barack Obama mocked him. It's important to remember this. Barack Obama even mocked the then Republican candidate for pretending to have a, quote, magic wand. Do you remember this? Unquote. To rebuild the manufacturing base. Manufacturing struggled on life support during the heavily regulated post-Great Recession period under the Obama administration. And you probably should click on that and read that, because it will show you what happens. Anyway, the TCJA, which is citing the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was Trump's signature legislation and the first overhaul to the U.S. tax code in 31 years, a record 95.1% of manufacturers in that quarter registered a positive outlook for their company. Folks, that was the highest level ever in the 20-year history of the Manufacturers Outlook Survey. The National Association of Manufacturers, the NAM, also said expectations for growth in investments, hiring, and wages are reaching historic highs since the survey began in the fourth quarter of 1997. The first National Association of Manufacturers Outlook Survey, after President Donald Trump took office showed a, quote, dramatic shift in sentiment, unquote. The NAM survey found more than 93% of manufacturers were feeling positive about their economic outlook, which at the time was the highest level ever measured. Why at the time? Because he broke it. He broke it! It surpassed it, went to 95.1. Industrial production, which was worth noting, increased 0.6% in June after falling 0.5% in May. Manufacturing output, however, rebounded strongly, rising 0.8 in June, meeting the forecast. At 107.7 of its 2012 average, total industrial production was almost 4% higher in June than it was the year prior. 4% growth. People. All right. Let me give you an example. Working class Jersey. Where I was from. I mean, obviously, I was born in New York and I was part of the great Italian exodus to Jersey. There was in my town a manufacturing warehouse. The name of the company was called Suburban. They made storm doors and windows and some other stuff, but that was the assembly line. It is now a shell of a building. We just drove past it. Why does that matter? When I was young, like young enough to get working papers, you need them in the state of New Jersey. I got a job at Suburban for some extra money. Back then, and you guys know how old I am. I was getting like $13 an hour to build storm doors and windows with my homeboy Leroy from the hood of Lakewood. He was like this 60-year-old black man, had the coolest stories. He would, I don't know if I should tell him, God forbid somebody hears it. I don't want him getting, well, he's probably, maybe he's passed now. Probably is. Oh, he would have to be. Yeah, he would be probably. So I guess it wouldn't hurt anybody. He would sip like, a little snort, a little something in the coffee, But he was a great guy. Anyway, that place, let's say someone's dad lost their job. That place was there to scoop him up. And in the meantime, until dad could find something that was in his field or whatever it is that he did before, something different but better, you could go to Suburban and get a job. Foreman, working class dude too. Old man Otto, hilarious. I can't remember what nationality he was, but he was the boss. But the foreman was in charge of all that stuff. Otto was super nice. The foreman, you go in there and tell him the deal. Hey, look, I need to make ends meet for a couple of weeks. No harm, no foul. Not a place that's going to get mad because 2 weeks later you find something better and go. They understand that's what the manufacturing base can be used for. It's gone now. I suppose you could go wait on the professional class. I suppose you can go get a job. Oh my God, I don't even know what's there anymore. Honestly, I don't. A lot of those stores I missed. I was, thinking about stores. I haven't seen the brands of some of those stores in many years. They look like nobody's added a new finish of paint on the outside of their building since I saw them last. Nobody's power washed the soffits or, it's just running down. It just run down. It's tragic. And those again are people. Let's not lose sight of that because of politics. You know what I mean? All right, listen, let's take a real quick break and then we'll come back and we'll get into some more politics. All right, the DNC convention, the polling potential with what's going on with RFK. We'll talk about it in a second. But for right now, we're just talking about how crummy this economy is. Now would be a great time to look for diversification and protection in other alternative areas. We know what the Fed's going to do. They're going to play around with interest rates, and we know markets can be unpredictable. And of course, the inflation has a huge impact on the value of currency. So if you've ever thought about diversifying or any of this, definitely give the guys, Brian and his team, a call at Freedom Gold USA. Look, what I love about these guys is that they're not going to give you the pushy sales BS. All right. But also, this is, this is the better, when you call some of these companies, it can be like 50 grand, 20 grand, even 10 or 5. And, Freedom Gold is $5,000 commitment, but not for you. For you, they have dramatically reduced that, and you will go in the prize pool. And we're actually talking with Brian now to get him back on the show to talk about all this inflation nonsense, but also to discuss the prize pool. But take advantage of it while it's still open. Okay. And then also you could just go to the website and see maybe you want to do something else. Because there are other great qualifying stuff or other great deals you may qualify for. So go to freedomgoldusa.com/rich, like my name, RICH. freedomgoldusa.com/rich, and go see what you may qualify for. Go check it out. Or just give them a call because they're great at answering any questions you may have. 888-279-3592. That number is direct for us, but it would still be great if you said, hey, People's Pundit sent me. 888-279-3592. They will answer any and all questions that you got because they really are about, all about helping you make a confident decision and giving you all of the knowledge and, all of the confidence in the world to do that. All right. So again, without the pushy sales BS, 888-279-3592, 888-279-3592. You better believe Laura and I not pass that up. I'm telling you. We do, of course, as many people should, invest in alternative stuff. And there is no deal on the planet like this. And you're still with all of you could get a $500 credit. You will on a new gold or silver IRA. You're going to get a $500 credit. Regardless of any of these deals you may take advantage of, you're still going to get free shipping and insurance. That's not the case for other places when you are talking about the scope of the investment, the size we're talking about here. They want you to go big or go home. You know what I mean? They do. All right. Again, 1-888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. And that's freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Also, real quick, the wellness company with their new kit, which is dope. All right. Moderna scores federal funding for mRNA bird flu vaccine as the pandemic fears grow. Listen, I don't know about you guys. I'm absolutely tired of this crap. Here's election year. We know where they're going with this. As usual, it's just as for now, thank God they haven't gotten the traction that that they want to get. If you got kids, obviously school's starting up. We all know, we call it the crud, right? We did in the Army. We all know how sick kids can get. For Laura and I, this is very simple. For lower than the price of a hospital visit and the single visit to the doctor, you can get the wellness company's contagion emergency kit, and that will give you an incredible the value is just incredible. It's also peace of mind. Life-saving drugs, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack, zithromycin, of course, amoxicillin, vadenicide, the nebulizer. I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, every household should have at least one of these. We have 2. Every household should have one. And they changed the color. You can pick different colors for the kit, which is cool, right? Because the first one I got was like that baby blue, remember? I was like, oh, guys, you're killing me. Right. Go to twc.health/TPP. twc.health/TPP. The links are always, of course, in the description. When you get there, you're going to know you're in the right spot because you're going to see my big, beautiful face. And it's definitely, if with school coming up, if you have kids, this is a no-brainer. And that'll save you $30 at checkout. Sorry, it is just for people who are in the US. So I know we got a lot of Canadian viewers. Sorry about that. You'll also get, by the way, a handbook that has a tremendous amount of very useful information to help you safely, use these life-saving drugs. All right. Simple call, real quick, a couple questions, and bang, it's on the way. It's amazing. Sean's got him. I got him. And there's a reason why. All right. The wellness company is great. Where would we be without Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Drew, right? all these guys who stepped up, where would we be? All right. Speaking of which, let's get into it. This convention is not good. Can we just get through? Can we look with all of the propaganda? It's still, and it is propaganda. I'm over beating around the bush here. Modern Democratic campaigns are not run by the political party. They are run by the media entertainment industry in general, and the administrative state. They are a state-run party in the North Korean sense, and they are pushed by state-run media. This is how they seek to persuade. Yeah, I don't want to say convert. Persuade people to vote. Persuade people to vote for them. But really, very clearly, this convention is about turning out their base. I got to tell you, I think there's been a couple of people who have gone on CNN, Fox News, different outlets, and have been honest about this. David Axelrod, just yesterday, had again repeated that if the election is today, he believes Donald Trump will win. Why? No, they haven't done really succeeded, despite what you see in the the ridiculous New York Times polls and others. And by the way, and I mean, you want to dump a bunch of money in Florida, knock yourself out. Then if we have time to go over the vote, I'd love to. But Miami-Dade was essentially 1 point Democratic in this primary vote. Wait until the low prop voters come out. You're cooked. But whatever. You want to drop millions and millions into Florida? Go ahead. All right. So ditto North Carolina. You think Michael Whatley's going to lose his own state? Yeah. Okay. By the way, who's polled North Carolina correctly in the last 12 years? Florida. The only one is the only one who has polled Florida correctly over the 12-year period. I mean, there have been others that did good jobs, but I'm talking about that entire 12-year period. This guy. That's right. And even 2014, I remember that Tillis was down to Hagen in every single poll except for one other, and it was a Republican pollster, so nobody took it seriously, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like us and one other Republican pollster. Cunningham had a huge lead in 2020 over Tillis. All right. So these people like over at the Crystal Ball just make me laugh. They're hysterical. This convention is about driving. It confirms what I told you about the Waltz pick. It's like Obama's 2012 strategy. We're abandoning the middle. We're going after the base and trying to gin up turnout so high among the base, it doesn't matter. And in fact, Barack Obama lost the middle in 2012. It just didn't matter because Mitt Romney could not turn people out. What independents or persuadables that did come out, yes, voted for Romney. They were grossly outnumbered by Barack Obama's base. That's what they're trying to do here. And of course, that relies very heavily on Black women and Black voters in general. And I want to play a clip because I think he is, I don't know. Maybe we'll try to get him on the show. I mean, I've heard he's a pretty cool guy, actually. I really have. Even though I know you're probably, when you see it, you're going to go, But I'm telling you, like, why would he do this? I don't think he wants Donald Trump to win. He spent years of his professional career advocating against Donald Trump. And at least he was never a hard news guy. At least he gets put into the category along with like a Sean Hannity or something like that. They're a personality. No, they were on TV, but they're not pretending to be hard news. They got a view. I can only think that he knows the polling that is trying to turn this all around is BS. He knows it is. And he knows that Harris has a major problem. And for all of these people who are like, look at how much she's improved. That is still wipeout territory. I'm sorry. She should have an 80-point lead with Black voters. Biden won them by 81 points. This is not a good position for her to be in. Actually, it's more than that, wasn't it? I'd have to go and look and see what the co-op study. I did actually just have the census. Let's see what the census has to say. Where are you? I know it was here. Maybe I need to go back a little bit further. Nope, there it is. I'm not sure it told us exactly. This is who voted. I wanted to go over a few things with you because there is just insane, and I mean insane projections and electorate modeling. But Barnes and I did a lot of that on Monday. So I missed some stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, but we have some time on that, so I don't need to jump the gun on it. But just make sure that you look at, again, some of these internals. It is a choice for a pollster to put the white vote at 62%. That's insane. The white vote was 71% generally. I mean, you have the Pew Research, I think they had it at 70 or 73, one or the other. Census had it at 71. The AP Votecast had it at 74. I think that's too high. And the exit polls had it at 67, which caused everybody to panic. They never revised it. It's still to this day 67 or 68. If you go and look right now at the CNN, which is Edison Research's exit polls, that was very low. I am telling you right now, mark my words, when the exit polls come in November, they're going to show you the electorate is like 64% white. I guarantee you this will happen. And I'm telling you right now, it will be a bunch of bullshit. Eventually, the white vote will be 64%, which is why Barnes and I took people like Ann Coulter and Brian Gradusky to task on Monday, because you're talking about leading people down the primrose path. If you're a Republican and you want that strategy of maximizing the white vote, you're doomed. You're doomed. All right. But that time is not now. And it is entirely possible that black turnout is not what they think it will be, and Hispanics actually maybe vote at higher rates than black voters do. It is entirely possible. It is also entirely possible that whites outvote everybody and they become like 73% of the electorate. We have been seeing this consistent thing in the polling for years under Biden. Just that last one, which we really identified a response bias, was the white vote around 67, 68%. Again, black voters decided that they were going to be 2 out of 10 more likely to speak, and black Democrats filled the lion's share of that new group. However, do they represent everyone? We always hear every time there's 10% or 15% or 20% Trump gets with the black votes. Oh, they don't represent black voters. Well, tell me if you notice something about all these people that he's speaking to.
The election.
I'm going for Trump. I feel like every time they don't want somebody who is good for us to win, they throw somebody black in our face thinking that's going to make us vote for the black person.
I voted for Obama because he was black. I don't want to vote for her because she's the first black woman to run for president or to win.
I don't vote.
Well, I want Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I want Donald Trump.
Why do you apologize?
Well, I know nobody likes him, but we had good times with Donald Trump.
I just want to say, I think Don Lemon deserves some credit right there for what he just said. That was very fast and off the cuff. Why do you apologize? He said. It's so funny. You have like Andrew and Chris Cuomo, all of these CNN people, when they leave, they all very much liked Donald Trump before he ran for president. They loved him. They loved the guy. They did. They all did. He had good relationships with all of these people. Okay. And then when they leave CNN, they certainly get really Trumpy. I'm not saying Don Lemon is, and I think he's actually doing this probably in an effort to wake Democrats up, but maybe not. I don't know what's in his head and what's in his heart, but I got to tell you, he deserves credit right there for saying, why do you apologize? It's a huge deal. Remember how much we've spoken about the cascading effect and what is essentially bullying by the civil rights era. Okay. The civil rights generation, they effectively bully younger black voters into voting, or have. And I don't think it's working anymore with a large chunk. All right. But they rely, and Democrats need them to do this. They rely on the memory of the civil rights era in the minds of older black, more partisan Democrats to socially suppress dissent. And that gets very, very difficult. It's easy to do when it's like 9-on-1, right? For every 10. It gets much harder to do when it's like 1 out of every 6 dissenting, right? And I think him doing that right there is in part a recognition that that is the case. You have heard all of these voters say what? I'm sorry, I'm voting for Trump. They're apologizing for voting for Donald Trump. This is a great example of everything we have been talking about. Folks, when we poll, when we're in the field and a black voter tells us that they're voting for Donald Trump, do you have any idea? I can't even count. There's no way, since I've been doing this and in the Trump era specifically, as he's been trending up with black voters, I cannot tell you how often or how many times we hear black voters apologize during a live interview. Who are you voting for? If the election was today, for whom would you vote? You know, I'm sorry, I got to go with Trump. What are you sorry about? That's your opinion. I'm here to record your opinion. But they're saying that. Young man we exit polled. I will never forget this guy. My aunt's going to kill me. Is this going to get out? No, this is confidential. I voted for Donald Trump. Guys like him in that state were crucial to Trump holding on to that state. Large African-American population, large black population. To have 9, 10, 12% defect, huge. And it's the defections are much higher this year. And we all know it. The only question is how much. I never believed Trump would get 30% of the black vote. I never believed he would get 25% of the black vote. But 15, 16, maybe 20, absolutely doable. And anyone who doesn't think that is the case is in for a rude awakening. The cascading effect is very clearly occurring. And Democrats have a major problem. Big if. The worst thing that could happen to them is Donald Trump wins this election and the Republican Party is solidified as the party of MAGA and the party of Trumpism and begins to assume that mantle without apology. Because if they do, age will do the rest. Time will do the rest. Let's continue.
Running for Trump, so.
You are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why?
Yeah. I don't know. I just always been a fan of his, so that's what I'm running for.
I used to be against Trump. I used to live in Virginia. I saw the bad side of it, but really moving to Cleveland, I saw the other side of it.
I'm supporting Trump.
You are.
Mm-hmm.
Because?
Because it has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change, and now I vote more for what fits me better as a person, rather than voting for the black person or voting for the first woman. So.
What do you think about?
Look at my man's face. Look at my man's face. He's smiling. He's got a shit-eating grin ear to ear. He's like, oh, thank Lord, man. Thank the Lord I can speak up. You see his face? He's like, I don't have to hide it anymore. No more. Oh, God, that's funny. But that's it. You can see it right in front of your eyes.
Kamala Harris.
I think they say she phony and fake, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, I'm like Trump saying, you know, what are you, you know? So I'm not feeling her. People get mad about it. I'm just not feeling her.
I don't like her the way she speaks, the giddiness, the laughing. Everything's a joke, and it's not a joke. We're in trouble.
I'm going for Trump.
I just heard that from a black woman in Paramus. I just heard that same thing. Paramus is in New Jersey for people who don't know. It's northern New Jersey, and it is not Republican in that area. I just heard the same thing. What the hell is she always cackling about? This shit ain't funny. I'm hurting. Look at how many illegals are here. My family's hurting. What is she laughing at?
Kamala was on Biden's team, and I don't like Biden. Gas wasn't this high when Trump was our president. Food wasn't this high. I'm going for Trump.
There it is. Why would he do that? And the fact he even did do it is a testament to the cascading effect being in full force. Well, maybe not full force, but it's in force. If the guy gets 14, 15%, it's a wrap. For every 6 points he needs to lose, and this doesn't take into account his improvement with Hispanics, which, by the way, there are liberals on Twitter celebrating that he's only doing 10 points better now. You do realize what 10 points among Hispanic votes going to do, right? I guess not. I guess you don't. I guess. But for if the electorate was to stay the same, which it's not, but let's say it is, every 6 points, Trump does better with black voters alone, not counting anybody else. Kamala Harris has to win 1 point more of the white vote. Why is that so problematic? She's not already. She already is not polling as strong as Biden was polling with white voters. That's number one. Number two, Trump's history of underperforming in the polls in general elections among white voters is very well documented. He's going to lose white women in the suburbs. No, he didn't. He beat Hillary Clinton with white women in the suburbs. He's going to lose the suburbs because all those white women in Pennsylvania, no, he carried that area group by 3 points. This is very, very, very well documented. He's only going to win the white vote by 6 points, so says the New York Times final national poll. No, he won it by between 13 and 16 points, depending on which pre- and post-election surveys, studies, really, that you believe. This is very, very clearly a thing with Donald Trump. Is it possible it doesn't happen again? Of course. But there's no reason to suspect in this environment, again, with this response bias, we're not looking at straight into the same thing right now. And shocker, shocker, the same groups who threw the social bias signals in 2020 are throwing them now. Can see it clear as day. All right. Let's talk about this convention, okay? And then we'll get into the RFK thing, and then we'll wrap it up with some talk about some polling. This convention's weird. If you don't realize that they're trying to gin up the base. Michelle Obama's speech was hate-filled, filled with lies. It was. Let's get real. Biden looked like he didn't want to be there at all. And he is no longer a part of the convention. They had to force him, kicking and screaming, drag him along, kicking and screaming, to give the speech the first day of the convention. And they are completely in disarray when it comes to like logistics. Anyone in the media who tells you otherwise is lying. They know this is true. The RNC was super smooth when it came to media access, getting your credentials, knowing what time people were going on and when people were speaking. The Democratic National Convention is a total shit show. People aren't being told what times we can, hard times, we can expect this person, that person, and when they are, they're not on. Biden was a perfect example. Biden went on way too late. Way too late. And there was some speculation as to whether or not they did that because Biden is so unpopular, yada, 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 yada. They didn't. It's very disorganized. And again, I would ask you for putting aside, these stupid emotional things, man, and just looking at the facts. No one has ever accused Kamala Harris of running anything efficiently. She didn't run her office in California efficiently. She didn't run her office in the U.S. Senate efficiently. She burned through a 90% staff turnover in the vice president's, the office of the vice president in her first year. Her campaign, by all accounts, until you can do a lot of criticism on the DeSantis campaign and how much money they wasted. And I myself called it one of the worst, if not the worst, run presidential campaigns because of how much they wasted. But with Kamala Harris, it was one catastrophe after another. She put someone in charge who had no experience, who was not competent, who was not capable. We're abandoning Iowa for New Hampshire. One reporter goes, writes a story about it. They double back to Iowa and cancel an ad buy here. And it was a total disaster. Everybody knows it. And she didn't even make it to Iowa because of that. She's not a good manager, which is really scary when you think about it, because who the hell is going to run the White House? Who's running the White House right now? It's another question for another time. But nobody from liberal media to Democratic influencers could sit here and tell me that this woman is competent in running things. She's not. And this convention is a disaster. Listen, I'm not a big fan of the guy. In fact, I don't like him at all. But this is a good example. And there's dissent here in a way that the media sold. They sold us. Here we go. Here's one right here. Okay. Here we go. They sold us a line that this was going to be a united, right? Remember the Political article we talked about? They're far from it. I mean, there are people openly criticizing the policy in Ukraine. There's people who are openly criticizing the policy in the Middle East. There are people, and that's, I mean, dissent is okay. I mean, it's good, but it's not for the right reasons. And then, like, again, it's fine unless you consider how phony this was presented to us, that it was going to be like such a unified thing and a love fest. It's absolutely not. You have an alderman from the city of Chicago, who of course is a Democrat, going on programs and saying that this isn't a convention that's meant to reach out to the middle. They're not persuading anybody. They've been very critical. The city Democrats in the city of Chicago have been extremely critical because they know how unpopular it is about the administration, Harris and Biden's policies with illegal immigration and the border crisis. I mean, the guy's going on every show he can go on saying, you're not reaching out to people telling them how you're going to do this. And even if you did, how would you sound credible since you were the one who was supposed to stop it and you're in freaking office now? Like, this is not a convention to reach out to the middle. This is a convention to gin up our own people. And I don't like it. And there's nothing wrong per se with running a base election because, the Karl Rove strategy that he at least espouses on TV, he didn't do it in 2004, is overrated. Reach out to the middle. People follow people who have the courage of their own convictions. That is human nature. People follow people who don't stab their own followers in the back. That is human nature. People follow strength and conviction. That is human nature. Forget about politics. In many ways, Trump ran a base election in 2016. He did. And the media did everything in their power to tell the middle he was a nutcase in extreme. And guess what? He not only ginned up turnout 7 mil from 2012, he won the middle. Barack Obama in 2012 did lose the middle, but he ginned up his own turnout so much it didn't matter. Bush in 2004 did not try to reach out to the middle. Karl Rove is so full of shit. Bush and Republicans did everything in their power to put value voters amendments on ballots in the states so they could do everything they could to gin up their evangelical base. Did he win the middle? He did. Why? Because people follow people who have the courage of their own convictions. Do I have to repeat myself? And he ginned up his base enough to just squeak out an election win by like 10,000 votes in the state of Iowa. That's it. Running in the middle is overrated. Martha McSally ran to the middle and she lost to Kirsten Sinema. Martha McSally ran to the middle and she lost again. Should have just went with Kelly Ward. Maybe Kelly Ward would have ginned up the base enough where they would have gotten another 240,000 votes. Instead, Democrats outvoted them. Did Mark Kelly back down from being a gun-grabbing nutcase? Nope. Did Kirsten Sinema run from her prior statements that made her sound like a commie fanatic? Nope. And by the way, she didn't govern like one. She governed to the left. Don't give me that shit. An independent. No, she's not. Never was. Voted, caucused, and voted with Democrats all the time. Who voted for the Inflation Reduction Act? Uh-huh. That was a kickback to Green New Deal people. I mean, that's had nothing to do with reducing inflation. Another Goebbels level scam. The highest order. Here's Mike Tracy. Not a huge fan, but at least, I don't know who I would take. I don't know who else would be a good person to put up, because I actually think he's one of those people like fake being like objective and then, pull the wool over you. I'm sorry. I just don't, the trust level's not there. Like, I do not put him in the Glenn Greenwald category or the, that group of people. I mean, I like Aaron quite a bit. I think Aaron is honest. Amate. They're all in kind of that same clique. I don't know, for some reason he doesn't get. I get the trust with him. The Jimmy Dore clique. Even though Jimmy's not a reporter, he's more of like an entertainer. I love the Jimmy Dore show, by the way. For all these people who think I'm some crazy right winger, I love Jimmy's show, man. Guy is funny as hell. He's entertaining as hell. He is. Anyway, Mike Tracy puts up, I'm legitimately shocked at how catastrophic the logistics of the DNC are. I am talking to an Illinois state representative, Cyril Nichols, a Democrat, of course, who has given up on trying to get in. Quote, this is horrible, he says, pointing out other state reps still stuck on the endless line to nowhere. Do not give me this crap that they intentionally had Biden speak later. They intentionally did this. It's a shit show. Even with the full cooperation and help of the media and entertainment industry from New York to Tinseltown, it's a shit show. Why? Because at the end of the day, who's running it?
As hell to announce that Wisconsin passed one vote present and 94 votes were for, who are we at? Got me going here. Former Wisconsinite, former state, oh my God. We love you, Jody! We love you, Jody! Woo! Woo! 94 votes. I'll get there, Jason. I'll get there. 94 votes for former Wisconsinite, Vice President, and our next President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
I'm curious, Wisconsin. Did you know your governor was a retard? Did you? Donald Trump has Terry Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt off, doing the Hulkster gimmick like he's 25 again, body slamming Andre the Giant. Like, guy looked great. He did it great. He's got Kid Rock. They got jump around going on in the background over there. And there's this like old, mentally stunted white guy. This is the guy, by the way, who was supposed to navigate the state through COVID. No wonder you ended up how you did. But with the help of the media, he got through. All right. He's got Kid Rock up there doing like American Badass with the fight thing. All right. Let's be real. The RNC logistically was done much better. I got to agree with Tracy. But also, I think part of it is just the people that Trump has brought into the Republican Party. Like, you can't do anything to make these people cool. There's nothing you can do to make Tim Walz look cool. There's nothing you can do to make Tony Evers look cool. Like, thank God they didn't give this guy a speaking spot. But for the love of God, there's only so much you can do when you have people like this. At the end of the day, you have to showcase them, right? They are your party. For crying out loud, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tim Walz. Are you ready? Get ready for this. John Cougar Mellencamp, bro. Does anyone believe this guy listens to the Cougar?
small town. Governor Tim.
I just got to tell you, if I went into his garage and found a black van with the windows spray painted, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, this is just talk about weird. And it's like the media's on their side, so it's really a testament to the power that they have to project this propaganda. Who is weird? There's nothing weird to most Americans about a guy like JD Vance. It's JD's job to punch through the propaganda and let people see him for who he is. And it is hard and it's very difficult to do that, but at least he has the net. I mean, because it's real. JD Vance has that experience. Tim Walz does not have the same experience. It doesn't make, and by the way, the experience that JD lived is sadly, an experience that so many others, in fact, a majority knows someone who has a family member or something. Or, I mean, a majority has a family member like JD dealt with his mother. The entire generation is almost a lost generation. It's my generation. JD and I share a generation. It's almost an entire lost generation because of what the government allowed bad entities to do to their own people. Selling them out in NAFTA, selling them out to Purdue Pharma, letting them basically gnaw on what little meat was left on the bone of the Midwest. That's what they let Purdue Pharma do. Prey on the vulnerable. And they made them vulnerable. So when JD speaks from a place where he can attest to that, and he knows it and he understands it, it is going to come across as authentic because it is authentic. This is not. And honestly, these Republicans out there trying to draw some kind of like false moral equivalence or do these whataboutisms like John Podhoretz did yesterday. I mean, just shame on you. This is not even close. Shame on you. Did JD Vance or Donald Trump ever lie about a DUI in which they were doing that? I mean, he could have killed somebody. And I'm no friggin' angel. We all know this. But for crying out loud, take responsibility for yourself. They just immediately make excuses. How dare you question me for lying about stolen valor? What? Take responsibility, man. I did not know it was the Midwest value. It was a Midwestern value to dodge responsibility, blame other people, act irresponsibly, abandon your brethren, abandon your followers, and then lie and take credit for those who did not. The actions of those who did not. That does not sound like a Midwestern view to me. Does not sound like a Midwestern value to me. I mean, so it's hard to sell. My point is, it's hard to sell something that's not real. And I think that this is a repeat of, like this joy thing. Well, let me get the exact phrase so I don't mess it up. This is a recycling because joy versus fear, right? Sound familiar? Love trumps hate. Hillary Clinton. It's like they're trying to take the base turnout of Barack Obama because she's black, and I don't even want to use that term, because she's a minority and she's a woman, which is doubly good. I think they feel like their last mistake was it was a white woman, right? And they just couldn't get black voters out like that. As we just heard from the clip with Don Lemon, I'm not sure this is a very wise strategy either. But this is how they think. And so they're trying to use a blend of what Hillary Clinton did in 2016, which failed, take what they think was right and what makes sense with their worldview, and mix it with Barack Obama because they feel because she's a black woman, she's going to be able to recreate what was successful for Obama while also basically making a cookie cutter Clinton campaign only for a black woman or a non-white woman instead of, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a prick here. It's just, I'm trying to be factual. And I have friends actually who get offended when people say Kamala Harris is black or a black American, an African American. She's not. They get upset. She's Indian and Jamaican. And by the way, as Don Lemon himself has pointed out, Jamaica's not a part of America. Sorry. Indian is an Asian ethnicity. Sorry. It's just real. Look, everyone kind of mocked Trump for getting stuck in that. And I said myself, he needs to let his surrogates do that while he stays on message. But bringing all of those black women to the podium in Georgia after that happened was brilliant. It was on, you could hear it in those voters' interviews. We hear it during polling. I'm a white man, so it's like, doesn't have much credibility coming from me, but I'm telling you, I know and have spoken with even many, many black people who do not like this. They don't feel like her experience was the African-American experience. So I'm just saying that because I'm not trying to be a prick, but I am trying to it's like everyone's immediately worried about Kamala's views and her feelings. What about the feelings of the people they rip off their identity? Poor Tim Walz lies about stolen valor. What about the guys who really do have valor? What about their feelings? Kamala Harris is so deeply offended you don't call her an African American. What about the offense of the African American community who aren't partisan Democrats and don't appreciate this? Don't appreciate a woman who was raised Indian in Canada coming to them and speaking to them with a southern drawl as if she was literally Rosa Parks or something. Like, get out of here. And that's their mindset, and that explains why they think they should go this route. And because she is a minority, in addition to being a woman, I think, and this is, I'm speaking like that, I think that we risk more. We should attempt to get out the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic vote instead of appease the normies or even try to win the normies, because there are probably too many normies who are going to see through it. So that's more risky. Our better bet is to gin up the anti-Semitic turnout. Some of these people really just nasty people. You guys see the thing with Mike Lindell? You see the video with Mike Lindell with the Hamas protesters, how absolutely disgusting these people were and how they talk. They're awful people. I know do I have time to play this? I really want to get into the RFK thing, but I think it's important that everybody understands the kind of people that we're dealing with here. These are awful, awful people. First of all, anyone who's met Mike, and I have vehemently disagreed myself with things that Mike Lindell has, or things that he has championed, all right? But I have met him, and I got to tell you, I've met him many times, but he is a nice guy. He's always been very nice to me, very nice to my wife, even very nice to my kids, by the way, whom I had with me once at when he was at an event. And sat there and took, my daughter was like, "Oh my God, it's the My Pillow guy," because she loves My Pillow, and she loves the song and the commercials. So she was, Dad, you know him? Can I get a picture with the My Pillow guy? And I just walked up, Mike, my daughter's got to get a picture with you. I mean, he's just he's a nice dude. He's always very cordial. And by the way, I later found out when I was stranded once across the country doing something, I needed somebody to arrange transportation for me back home so I didn't miss Christmas. I later found out it was Mike Lindell. I didn't even know. He didn't even tell me. Weird, right? He was like, "Oh, I just don't want to make sure somebody doesn't get home for Christmas." What? Folks, what? And the horrible things they say about a guy like that? Whether you agree with his politics or not? He didn't know me like that. He doesn't know me like that. He didn't owe me anything. He just did it, and he didn't want credit for it. Serious. Because I wasn't going to be told who it was. Later, somebody told me. No joke. True story. True story. Anyway, he's out there talking about this. He certainly has a place in his heart as a born-again Christian, which I believe he is. Mike has obviously a place in his heart, like many evangelicals do, for Israel. And he sympathizes with the plight of Israel. He sympathizes with Israel's battle against what he views to be anti-American forces and those who sympathize with them, which I think is fair. Whether I'm not, what's the word? Well, because too, he's also a believer. So, I don't want to get into a Bible lesson here, but if you are, then at the very least, you probably want to support Israel in some sense. I'm just not prepared to send my kids to go die for Israel, but they never ask for it, do they? Right? They always just ask for support, like a friend. Like, I'm not asking you to come and do this with me. Just support my decision and make sure, people know you have my back. And that's the way the U.S. has been to Israel, and Israel has never really asked for boots on the ground to help them with any of these problems with these people. All right, so he's out there giving his talk, and the Hamas protesters are out there. Let's play it real quick, and then we'll get on with the RFK stuff, because there's two clips that I cannot miss when it comes to this conversation about RFK, and it's already 1:46. So here he is outside, and he gets bombarded by these little bastards. I'm sorry. What happened to basic decency and respect for our elders? It's like a basic thing in society, isn't it? Isn't it just like so fundamental to have deference and respect to your elders? And by the way, look at this schmuck with a mask on. My God.
To get your shit together and realize what kind of history you're fucking
I'm trying to secure our election.
secure our election.
Oh, right. He's not even out there talking about Israel. That's right. He's talking about election integrity. I'm sorry, I misrepresented that, and I did know that. I forgot. He's out there talking about election integrity. He's not even talking about Israel and Hamas, the Israeli-Hamas conflict or Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the invasion. He's not talking about that. He's talking about election integrity. And these people do this. He said, you got quite a mouth on you. You need some sleep, I think. Watch this. Listen to this real quick.
I think you're about to go to sleep right now, bro. Keep going. I'm just saying. Relax.
Is that little shit gonna put someone to sleep? I think that kid's hand would break on my jaw. I'm serious. I think if that little punk ever punched me in the chin, he'd break every bone in his hand. And I would laugh my ass off while he screams for his mommy. These kids think there's something because this society cradles them. Back, folks, how old are you? I'm about to turn 43. Back in my day, you step like that with a big ass mouth and you're going to get it knocked in. Period. And we coddle this society. We allow people to say and do whatever they want and protect them for it. When I was, his age, if I opened my mouth like that to a grown man, I better have expected that guy is going to teach me some manners. And I better be fully prepared for that. I would argue that is by far a better system. I'm not advocating for a state of nature here, but you also cannot use societal norms to do that because it allows you to avoid responsibility for something you otherwise would be. It's like a lesson you would be taught, but these little weaker people are using societal norms to shield them from that, taking that responsibility, learning that lesson from those who would be in a state of nature much, much stronger than them. And this kid is acting like he's like king of the jungle or something. You want to go back to a state of nature, bro? Let's do it. I'm telling you, this kid's he might break his wrist forearm, elbow, and shoulder trying to punch me in the jaw, let alone Mike, who's twice my size. You have got to be kidding me. But this is what it is. Why? Probably because his mama never slapped him in the mouth when he needed it. It's all downhill, man. Thank you, Dr. Spock. I'm serious. This is what we produced. Don't cry, bro, when you end up downtown running your street, you're running your mouth to somebody outside of the privileged neighborhood, and somebody knocks your jaw on the side of your face. Don't cry about it. That's the real world. You're about to go to sleep. Oh, right. And poor Mike, he's got to sit there because, of course, Mike knows a little something about the streets. Mike's like me. He wasn't always a nice guy. All right? He wasn't always reformed and in the warm arms of the Lord. Okay? Once upon a time, Mike was a lot like me. These people are a freaking joke. You're about to go to sleep. Why? Did you spike his drink with a Valium or something? Because that's about the only way you're putting Mike Lindell out, little boy. Gotta be joking, man. Crowd bullies. Crowd bullies. What a friggin' crowd tough guys, right? Crowd tough guys. Get him away from that camera. Kid would piss his pants.
All right. You guys. He's a nice guy. He won't even give a shit. She's just yelling at him. You guys are protesting. You support Palestine? You support Palestine? You support Palestine? No. Okay, get the fuck out of my face, bro. Move on. Move along. I can have my own opinion. That's right. That's right. I can have my. I'm 40,000 here in Chicago. Get the shit out of my face. What do you do? What do you act in society? You have nothing in society. You have nothing in society.
Do you stand against genocide?
I stand for Israel and Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's
Jesus
your response.
Palestine,
You fucking idiot. That's the response to do you stand?
Hamas. You elected Hamas. Come on. Jesus was alive. Why don't you have election? I will pray for you guys. I will be praying for you.
I will be praying for you. Honestly, this stuff writes itself. I mean, there's like so much material, there's so much material. It's like political malpractice not to just like highlight some of this stuff. I mean, if you're the Trump campaign, that stuff you don't. I mean, honestly, I really just believe that all he has to do is stick to inflation and immigration and just, I am Donald Trump and I approve this message kind of thing with the sprinkling like a little salt and pepper, on a good meal. Let's sprinkle a little, women beater category added to the Olympics here and there. And that's it. But I mean, these people will scare the bejesus out of the normies. But again, that's not really who they're after, is it? It's not. Which brings us to, with 7 minutes left, how they're going to court. Because they're not going after the middle. So how are they going to deal with a potential scenario where RFK gets out of the race and endorses Donald Trump, and that 5%, guys, 5% in this environment in a national election is very significant. Very significant. I mean, it could be 2 points in Pennsylvania. It could be 2 points alone in the state of Pennsylvania. If Trump takes, let me just do the math real quick. Let's say he's getting 5%. Let's say, and not that I'm pulling this out of my you-know-what or anything. Let's say on average, 40% of his voters already say that they would vote for Donald Trump if RFK was not in the race. Okay? You're already looking at a little over 2 points. Okay? A little over 2 points. And then you could have RFK endorse him and make the case that the rest of his supporters should. Now, they're not all going to. And about a third are probably not going to vote. That's probably what's going to happen. And you have a very small sliver who would consider voting for the Democrat. But the rest would be persuadable. It's a huge amount. So, of course, this is what we heard from his running mate. I don't believe I played the clip. We already announced it. You know, and she was on. Sorry, let me get her. I just had it in my head, the name of the damn show, and I want to get it right. I want to make sure they get a significant amount of credit for it. But Impact Theory. Okay, so it's Nicole Shanahan. For those who don't know her, she was selected by RFK to be his running mate. You might have seen this clip already. You probably have. Just bear with me because we have to play this before the next one, so it all fits nicely. And this is why, like I said, we need more shows going into this election season because there's just too much going on. But here we go.
What my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines.
In other words, translation. I don't want to lie to you about what's going on behind the scenes right now. I don't want to lie to you about what our thinking currently is.
I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November.
Translation. I have to stay true to myself, and I don't want this experience to cause me to do or say anything that I will regret and live with as a person later. This is an interesting exchange because this is someone running for office. So by definition, a politician being allowing herself to be extremely vulnerable and emotionally vulnerable, right? And extremely honest about what she is debating, they are debating in their own minds with each other, amongst each other. This is a very rare moment. And I would argue you're not going to see one like this for a while again. You're just not.
And if that means that we stay in, and, you know, there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as a party.
That's true.
71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, you know, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's two options that we're looking at. And one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walt's presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
I apologize for the glitch here. But that would be a critical part of that equation, because that would be the difference between what we're measuring is a natural percentage that have an inclination to go to Trump if Kennedy's not running anymore. That is in of itself already, yes, a significant share, which is why, by the way, Donald Trump is doing better, not only in ours, we were just the first ones to show it, but not only in ours, everybody's showing it now. Donald Trump typically in most polls is doing better now in the head-to-head against Kamala Harris. That was not the case, 2 months ago against Biden. That is the case now. So why is that? Well, it's a million reasons we've talked about already, but that is most definitely the result of not giving those voters another option. So you have the percentage that's naturally inclined to go to Trump, that are choosing him in only the head-to-head. And then there's even the percentage of those who, if you force them to vote, they'll vote for Trump over Harris and over even Biden as well. But that's not how elections really work in the real world. Polling sometimes needs to understand that. They have the option to not vote at all, right? That's the difference. That conversation she's having right there, how much effort both not only the Kennedy campaign puts into it, but also the Trump campaign. How much do they give them? How much attention do they give those voters? How many concessions on certain issues? How many issues will they champion? I'm telling you, it doesn't need to be a number. It just needs to be a significant amount of championing with some core issues. And that could be the difference between like 35-40% of Kennedy's voters saying okay and getting like another 2%, 2.25% in a state or nationally versus getting 4 out of 5 of them, because Harris does not appear to be drawing that much from Kennedy at all when he's not in the picture. All right. I mean, Trump's lead now with the full ballot. Well, I just said that, but we'll see what ends. But it is at least a half a point. And I know that just doesn't sound like a lot, but in our polling, especially when we get closer to elections, we go down to, marginal support. And, a half a point to 1.5 points, is like not a lot with the sampling error, but our sampling errors are low. It's 1.8%. So when you're looking at like a half a point, I mean, it is more significant than it normally would seem because the sample sizes are so large. So again, in a state like Michigan, and by the way, it's the difference between how long are we going to count these ballots? How many more days are they going to claim they have absentee ballots coming in? Right? Why? Because if you can already show that you're going to like surpass that, there'll be a lot less shenanigans, or they'll just think it's not worth it because they cannot overcome it. I mean, not that they won't try to make a respectable showing, but they did this with Hillary in Michigan, which is why when Jill Stein called for the recount, Hillary Clinton didn't sign on officially. She made some statements positive about it. But then when stuff didn't match and it was very clear that that benefited Hillary in Wayne County, she dropped her support for the recount. So why? Because it was clear that they were not going to be able to overcome it. It was close, but they were not going to be able to, so they stopped. And anyone who tells you that doesn't happen is a liar. A liar. And I'm sick and tired of listening to them lie and try to marginalize people who tell you the truth. Here's a breaking news bulletin for you. Democrats will cheat in Philadelphia in November. Here is a breaking news bulletin for you. Democrats are going to cheat in a lot of places. And guess what? In some places, Republicans will cheat. People cheat. It's just that Democrats have machines behind them, and they cheat a lot. The last 2 major indictments from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the Justice Department, as a result of the Federal Bureau of Investigation doing their job. And by the way, the motive for that is not usually because they're following the law. The motive is some political figure has fallen out of grace, and now they're going to be nailed to the wall or to the cross for wronging somebody or wronging the system. And that's why people go down. It's not because they're just doing their job. So let's cut the shit and live in the real world. The last 2 major indictments were both in Democratic strongholds. They were both in the Mid-Atlantic, by the way. And they were both dealt with former elected officials, including congressmen. And they both dealt with what are called election judges. They were in wards of Philadelphia, and they were in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli barely lost that election for governor in 2021. Barely. What were they doing? Stuffing the ballot box with votes of people who did not vote. That's what they were doing. In massive numbers. Not small, large numbers. No evidence of widespread fraud. My ass. Lies. Bill Barr suddenly has a different point of view, doesn't he? Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how Bill Barr changed his mind like that? Singing a very different tune. All right. Oh, I killed that. But it was glitching and doing its thing. So you get the picture. Here's Glenn Beck, because it's 2:05, interviewing Don Jr. about this and what it gives you an idea of, like, you know what, first of all, Don Jr.'s political instincts are second to his father's only. Like, I'm talking about what the people think. Like, it's amazing. I mean, the guy, spending since he was a kid, on construction sites with these guys wearing a hard hat. I mean, he learned something, man. And for those of you who don't know, he's huge in the hunting community and the Second Amendment community. Like, Don Jr.'s instincts are very good. Very good. And here he is explaining what, they would be willing to concede, or at least not they. Let's just listen to it.
Endorsement from RFK. Do you think that's coming?
Listen, I hope so. I think RFK, I think he's a smart guy. I think he's actually got very good views on certain things. I think there's some other things, we're going to disagree with him on. But I think it shows sort of a unity against, literally, you mentioned it before I hopped on, about the communism that we are up against. It's not hyperbole anymore. It's not like, oh, they're just a little bit more left than us. It's not, these people, she's talking about, we want to set up price fixing, and we want to set up this, and we're going to be auditing businesses, and we're going to take away your business, and we're going to take away your children if we, can't do, drive-through, transgender surgeries for minors without parental consent.
Right.
They've lost their minds. And so, I love the idea. I love the idea of, giving him, some sort of role in some sort of, major, three-letter entity or whatever it may be, and let him blow it up. I think that's what we need. And so I think that kind of unity, even where there may be certain disagreements on certain things, I think he could be a really great asset for that. I think he could bring people together. And I think it shows a strong, a strong opposition to what we are up against, which is just abject insanity. And I think if we had real unity across independents and others in America to stand up for what we know is coming, what the media is doing a very good job hiding from us, which is the reality of the Kamala Harris platform, which is just a continuation of the Biden administration's platform. We don't need another 4 years of this.
All right, hold on one second. I just want to say this. Could you imagine the optics, like the backdrop, if this happened? You have a guy whose father and uncle, one of which certainly the government was involved, second which the government is arguably involved, even though Sirhan Sirhan, who loses his uncle, his father, to political assassination, teaming up with the guy who they just tried to kill, was nearly assassinated himself. Just think about the optics of that for a second. Like, I feel like you can't pull that. Like, how the hell would you? How would you identify whether somebody was that sentiment, that like political? It's almost part of like your presidential justification, which we've talked about many, many, many times. You want to run for president, you've got to have a justification. Why you for this moment right now? Why you? You got to have that. Obama had it, of course. Hillary thought it was fake. They thought that they had it for her, but of course it wasn't real. It was just that, oh, I'm a Clinton and it's my turn. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to shatter this glass ceiling and what a bunch of bullshit. And they saw through it and it was over. But you didn't pick that up in the polling. Trump's justification, super clear, in case you're an idiot. I mean, actually, if you don't know it, then I'm not sure I can explain it to you. You voted against him and you're not gonna understand it. But the rest of the country did, right? Even George Bush in 2000, obviously, I'm going to restore integrity to the office. We can't be the policeman of the world. And I'm the guy to do this, because I'm like, yeah, I'm a Bush, but I'm a private sector guy, and I never even should have been governor of Texas to begin with. There was like a justification there to Bill Clinton, certainly a justification. Obama, for sure, even though, again, he failed at it, but so many do. What's Harris's justification? And then to pair these two together, like not even on a ticket. I mean, like They're like united in this message of us versus them, madness versus sanity. And oh, by the way, look what happens when you try to fight that sanity. They will kill you. And we're still fighting. I feel like that's really powerful. And I don't know what you would ask a voter to get that appreciation or acknowledgement out of them. Like, damn it, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for the mission of these guys. I just don't know how you would. Let's listen to the rest of it. But I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. But you get what I'm saying? It's like if the ultimate status quo person, she never earned a vote in her life, banged their way to the top to get to where it was. Then, uses the most powerful forces in her party to wage a coup against the sitting president to be selected, not elected, to lead the party and then hopefully, the country in their mind, versus two families who were taking political persecutions and assassinations to the face for the good of the average person. I just feel like 6 months later after the election, that's something people would look back and say, I don't know how the hell we expected this to turn out. Look at the dynamic. Look at the difference. Look at the compare and contrast. How did we expect this to? What did we think was going to happen? You can't pull that, I feel like we're going to, just the way we heard it after 16. I am your voice. At the time, it was like, oh, Hillary's up 14. He's going down with a stupid ass speech. A week after the election, you got Paul Ryan groveling at the microphone. I guess he heard that voice after all. Somebody pass me a cheese curd. It's amazing. I just feel like there's no way to beat that. Polls be damned. There's no way.
What's unique with this election, we had 4 years under Trump. We've had 4 years under Biden. When were you better off? It's sort of a no-brainer. And yet, when you're up against the trillion-dollar institution of tech, $1 trillion of mainstream media functioning as the marketing arm of the Democrat Party, it's hard to get a fair shake. And so we have to expose that. And the more people that we had on board, the better. So I'd certainly be open and welcome to the idea, frankly.
All right, so there it is. All right, don't forget, check out the Public Polling Project. Let me give you a real quick update on how we're doing, and then we're going to boogie woogie. And tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is, of course, what? Everybody, Savage Wednesdays with Sean Parnell. Don't miss it, 5 p.m. Rumble. Keep your eye on my locals feed. I will most definitely put it out there. Probably Truth and X as well, but it's always up on locals, which you can subscribe to. Of course, peoplespundit.locals.com. Look at how we're doing here. That national poll right there, the August to September one, the July to August, done and out of the way. August to September, which is the one that was supposed to be retroactive, almost done, really is. I mean, well, I don't want to say that and then discourage you, but put up the Rust Belt poll because the funding was coming along so well. And what are we at already, guys? I mean, man, that this is moving along at a nice little pace. I don't want to poll. I don't want to have to poll. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I would very much like the Public Polling Project to be successful. And I would very much like the Public Polling Project to have my full and undivided attention. Let me just say that. And then I will let you discern what you will from that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's doing great. Share it far and wide. Of course, the links are in the description. Thank you to our advertisers. As always, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, share them far and wide. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble and subscribe there and like the video there as well. Advertisements and algorithms. Taking a minute of your time to do that, and vice versa, by the way. And if you're on Rumble and you want to go over to to locals, or you want to go over to YouTube, that would be great. Getter, same thing. Really, though, trying to drive you to Rumble and locals. I really am. Why? Because that's where the technology is going. And I know you guys who are on YouTube, you absolutely love it, and that's fine. I'm not going to push you, but I'm just saying, there will be a point where it'll be very easy for me to like share things with locals, and then you will be able, let's say you want to watch it on Rumble instead, even if it's a locals only post, or locals only video, you will still be able to see it there. Whereas YouTube, you're gonna get the election basic stuff, you know, where we're gonna and higher tier, of course, but that's elections related and stuff. It's just easier, and that's where everything's going. Eventually, I'm telling you, we'll see. If Harris wins this election, you should probably expect people like me to be off of YouTube. Not because I want to be. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they will very much bring the hammer down. That's going to happen. I'm telling you. That's going to happen. If you are not a media-approved source of information or state-approved source of information, you will be gone. And Elon Musk will be able to, like, you know, deal with that on X. But unless he plans on buying every freaking social media out there, anyone who's alphabet related or close like that, I really don't trust it. I just don't. You know, prove me wrong, YouTube. Prove me wrong. Right? All right. So again, it really helps just for a minute of your time to go over there and like and share as well, and or subscribe and like as well. And anyone who's on YouTube, and of course, like I said, you know, absolutely just you do what you got to do. You know, I mean, if that's what you like to do, we're good with that. Don't miss Friday. That's Q&A, of course. And I did see a bunch of thank you, Peppers. Thank you. One day, you know, but nothing terrible. I know. Where is my little, you give me 1 second. Peppers, you earn this. Hang on 1 second. Winston, where are you, boy? Come to Daddy. There you are. Everybody wants to see you. Can I come and pick you up? Can I pick you up and put you in front of the camera? Come here. Oh, I'm sorry. Look how big he's getting. I think that's it, though. You know, I think that's it. Look at his coat. This is what I love about Australian Shepherds. Look at his coat. Look at his one blue eye, one dark eye, one blue eye. That's like one of my favorite things about him. Say hi, Winston. Say hi. Hi, everybody. Hi. It's a beautiful dog. Such a beautiful dog. Daddy loves you. I don't know how to pick you up without that, man. I'm sorry. You're so fragile. You want to stay here? Daddy will get you a treat in a second, okay? All right. So there he is. Love that dog. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Really good. I lucked out. Can he be? All dogs can do things sometimes that are crazy, but he's such a loving dog. He's such a like a caring dog. Like one of the kids, like, you know, gets hurt or something like that. It's just amazing how much empathy Australian Shepherds have, and how much they want to please you. You know, like they're like really. I mean, there are a lot of dogs that are dedicated, of course, you know, but it's really something. It really pops out, you know. Personality really pops out. Right, Winston? That's why you get toys. That's why you get toys. He's got a ridiculous amount of toys. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these toys. Like, but he's maybe because he's young still, he's like destroying them. And one of his little baby teeth getting loose. He lost a tooth and got one back. I didn't think, it's been a while. I didn't think that happened. But it does. All right. All right, so with that in mind, it's 2:18. Let's kick rocks. But I will see you at 5 p.m. if you are tuning into Battleground Live with Sean Parnell. All right? And I hope you do, because, man, it should be a good one. And we'll have we'll pregame the day 3 kind of thing of the commit. It's really, retrospectively. And we'll pregame tonight. All right? I wanted a chance to go over Florida, but maybe Friday we'll have a chance to do it. Can we cut the crap now that Kamala Harris has a 17-point lead in Miami-Dade? Can we cut the shit, please? So ridiculous. All right. See you at 5, folks. Nothing but love for you as always. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Kamala Harris, 17. Freaking realistic.